On December 4th, 1872, a Canadian ship Die Gratia was sailing in the Atlantic Ocean, 600 miles west of Gibraltar. One of the crew members of Captain Morehouse was looking out with a telescope. "Captain Morehouse, look, I think there is a ship." "Let me see. Yes, it is Mary Celeste. What is she doing here?" asked the captain in a confused voice. "But sir, I cannot see anybody on board, sir." "What? Really? Let me see it again," asked the captain. "Yes, you are right. There isn't anybody on board. That is very strange." "What do we do, sir?" asked the first mate. "Come on, prepare the small boats immediately. Let's board the ship," said Captain Morehouse. Once the captain, along with 2 of his crew members, boarded the ship, they found deck of the ship completely deserted with no signs of life. Captain Morehouse knew Captain Briggs, the captain of Mary Celeste, but he could not find him, nor his wife Sarah, or their baby, or any of 7 members of the crew. "Where is everybody? The ship seems abandoned," asked the captain. "Sir, I think we are standing on a ghost ship, sir," said one of the mariners with a fearful voice. What followed next is one of the greatest ocean mysteries of all time. Over the decades, multiple experts have come forward with their own explanations of this inexplicable mystery, but nobody has been able to solve it once and for all. But if we look closely at the evidence at hand, then there are subtle clues as to what might have happened. So without further ado, let's dig deeper into this case file. Mary Celeste was built in Nova Scotia in 1861, and it was originally named as Amazon. She acquired her new name Mary Celeste in 1868, when she was transferred to American ownership. Her registration documents described her as 99.3 feet in length, 25.5 feet broad, with a depth of 11.7 feet, and of 198.42 gross tonnage. In 1868, she was renovated again, costing $10,000 at that time, which enlarged her considerably. Her length was increased to 103 feet, her breadth to 25.7 feet, and her depth to 16.2 feet. The work increased the ship's tonnage to 282.28. Before we go any further, it's important to understand the composition of crew of both ships. Mary Celeste was captained by Benjamin Briggs, while Die Gratia was captained by David Reed Morehouse. According to some historical records, captains of both ships were close friends. Captain Benjamin Briggs was born in Wareham, Massachusetts on April 24, 1835, one of the 5 sons of Sea Captain Nathan Briggs. He was highly experienced and a well-respected seaman. For his last journey, Captain Briggs arrived at Port of New York on October 21, 1872, to supervise the loading of the ship's cargo of 1,701 barrels of alcohol. His wife and infant daughter joined him a week later. While Mary Celeste prepared to sail on November 7th, the Canadian ship Die Gratia was getting loaded in Hoboken, New Jersey, with a cargo of petroleum, destined for Genoa via Gibraltar. Die Gratia departed for Gibraltar on November 15th, following the same general route 8 days after Mary Celeste. On December 4th, 1872, Die Gratia had reached a position of midway between Azores and the coast of Portugal, when Captain Morehouse came on the deck and was informed by one of the helmsmen about a vessel at a distance of 6 miles, heading steadily towards Die Gratia. From the erratic movements of the ship and the odd setting of her sails, Morehouse suspected that something was wrong. After observing the vessel with his telescope, he found nobody on the deck and sent 2 of his crew in the ship's boat to investigate. After climbing the ship, the pair found the ship in following condition. The sails were partly set and in a poor condition. Some were missing altogether, and much of the riggings were damaged, with ropes hanging loosely over the sides. The main hatch was not opened, but the fore and lazarette hatches were opened with their covers lying beside them on the deck. Ship had a single lifeboat, which was a small yawl, but it was missing. The barnacle housing the compass of the ship had shifted from its place, and its glass cover was broken. Ship had around 3.5 feet of water in the cargo hold, which is significant but not a danger for a ship of this size. They also found on board an abandoned makeshift sounding rod, which was probably used to measure the amount of water in the hold. Ship's daily log was found in the mate's cabin, and the last entry in the log was made on November 25th at 8 a.m. Along with timing of the entry, the position of Mary Celeste was also noted down, which placed it near Santa Maria Island in Azores, nearly 740 kilometers from the points where Dei Gratia encountered her. Other than being wet and untidy from the water that had entered through doorways and skylights, cabin interiors were in reasonable order. In Captain's cabin, they found personal items scattered on the floor, including a sheathed sword under the bed, but most of the ship's papers and maps along with Captain's navigational instruments were missing. Equipment in the galley was neatly stowed away, and there were no signs of a meal cooked or still under preparation, even though there were ample provisions in the kitchen. On the deck or in the cabins, there were no signs of fire or violence. Everything pointed towards an orderly departure from the ship using the ship's only lifeboat. During those days, a salvor could get a substantial share of the combined value of the rescued ship and its cargo. After hearing all of these findings from his crew, Captain Morehouse decided to bring the ship back to Gibraltar, 1,100 kilometers away. He sent his first mate and 2 other experienced seamen to Mary Celeste, while rest of the crew remained on Dei Gratia. Once they reached Gibraltar, she was immediately impounded by the Vice Admiralty Court to prepare for salvage hearings. On December 17, 1872, under the supervision of Sir James Cochrane, the Chief Justice of Gibraltar, the salvage court hearings began. The hearing was conducted by Frederick Solly Flood, who was at that time the Attorney General of Gibraltar. Historians have pointed out that once Flood made up his opinion about some matter, then it was really difficult to change it. And after hearing the testimonials of crew of Dei Gratia, he was convinced that they had committed a crime here. Upon the orders of Flood, ship was examined by John Austin, the surveyor of shipping, and in his reports, John noted cuts on each side of the bow caused by a sharp instrument of some type, and he also found possible traces of blood on the captain's sword. In his report, he emphasized that the ship wasn't struck by heavy weather. He based his views on the fact that one of the vials of sewing machine oil was still found standing upright, even though a counter-argument could be made that the vial might have been replaced since the abandonment. After a month of investigations, Flood reached the conclusion that the crew of Mary Celeste had got access to the alcohol, got drunk, and murdered Captain Briggs and his family. They had created marks on the bows themselves to simulate a collusion, and later fled in the yawl. Later, when scientific analysis of the stains found on the captain's sword was done, they turned out not to be blood, and it was also later discovered that the marks on the bow were not man-made, but rather they came from the natural actions of the sea. With no concrete evidence to support his suspicions, Flood had no option other than releasing Mary Celeste back to the owners. Over the years, many experts came forward with an explanation for the abandonment and disappearance of the crew of Mary Celeste. So let's take a closer look at some of these theories. Oliver Deveau, the first mate of the Dei Gratia, was one of the first persons boarding the ship, and he believed that the crew abandoned the ship because there was a panic from the belief that the vessel had more water than had afterwards proved. He based his explanation on the sounding rod found on the deck, and said that Briggs abandoned the ship after a false sounding because of the malfunctions of the pump, which gave a false impression that the vessel was taking on water rapidly. This theory had many flaws, as Captain Briggs was quite experienced, and he won't abandon the ship without assessing the situation completely, as his family was also on board. Some experts came forward with the theory that the crew gained access to the cargo of alcohol, and while intoxicated, attacked the captain and his wife and killed them. Once they realized their mistake, they fled in the rescue boat of the ship and were never heard from again. But it is important to note here that there were no signs of struggle on board, and everything pointed towards the crew leaving the ship in an orderly manner, as per the instructions of the captain. One of the other theories that has been put forward by many experts is a theory of deliberate and premeditated mutiny. According to this theory, the crew engaged in mutiny against the captain and his family, but it is difficult to establish a motive here because Captain Briggs was not a hard master, and he had experience in handling men and vessels. On top of it, his vessel was well supplied with everything that was needed for the voyage. Here it is also important to note that if Captain had suspected a mutiny from the crew, there would be some mention of it in the ship's log, but there was none. Many experts have also blamed pirates for the abandonment of Mary Celeste and the disappearance of her crew. But such an attack could have hardly been made without leaving some traces of the struggle, which would happen due to fighting between the crews. But as noted earlier, there were no bloodstains on the decks or other woodwork of the vessels, and nothing seemed to be out of order. As per proponents of this theory, an iceberg frightened the captain and the crew, and Briggs, while fearing an imminent collision, ordered the abandonment of the ship. But as per weather reports, there was no possibility of icebergs in the locality where the ship was abandoned. And even if there were icebergs, other ships must have also reported it. The amount of water in the cargo hold of the ship and the poor state of the rigging and sails could also be explained by a waterspout strike. A strike from a powerful waterspout would have driven water from the bilges up until the pumps, leading the crew to assume that the ship was taking more water in, and they were all in danger of sinking. This panicked the crew, and Briggs ordered the abandonment of the ship. One of the most popular theories comes from the Dr. Cobb, who is the cousin of Captain Briggs and his wife as well. To quote Dr. Cobb, "I think that the cargo of alcohol, having been loaded in cold weather at New York early in November, and the vessel having crossed the Gulf Stream and being now in comparatively warm weather, there may have been some leakage and gas may have accumulated in the hold. The captain, having care for his wife and daughter, was probably unjustifiably alarmed, and fearing a fire or an explosion, determined to take his people in the boat away from the vessel until the immediate danger should pass." As per his theory, the captain got his wife and daughter into the boat and went for the chronometer, sextant, nautical almanac, and ship's papers. The binnacle was displaced and the glass was broken, probably in a clumsy attempt to get the compass quickly. The peak rope of the ship was taken as a tow line as a means of bringing the boat back to Mary Celeste in case no fire or explosion had destroyed the vessel. During that time, however, a fresh wind picked up and filled the sails of the ship, and it gathered speed quickly, which in turn caused the rope to break. As per proponents of this idea, an earthquake on the seabed would cause enough turbulence on the surface to damage parts of the Mary Celeste cargo, thus releasing noxious fumes. Briggs might have feared an imminent explosion and could have ordered ship's abandonment. Also, the displaced hatches suggest the attempting airing or inspection of the cargo, but like other theories, this also has many flaws. As per reports from Meteorological Department, no earthquakes were reported around that locality in time. As per one theory published in the Chambers Journal of September 17, 1904, it was suggested that the entire crew of Mary Celeste was plucked off one by a giant octopus or squid. It was a common myth among sailors at that time that these squids were known to attack ships. But this cannot explain the missing yawl or captain's navigation instruments. And last but not least, we have our usual suspects with their flying saucers. I have spent countless hours researching this topic for you guys, and have come up with the most objective explanation of this mystery, based on modern science and available evidence, so bear with me as we go into the minute details of this mystery. We know for a fact that some extraordinary and alarming situation would force an experienced captain to abandon a completely seaworthy ship with ample provisions. From the testimonies of the crew of Dei Gratia, it is possible to trace with some degree of precision the movements of Mary Celeste from the noon of November 24th until 8 o'clock in the morning of the following day. So, let's start. It is the noon of November 24th, 1872, and according to the entry on ship's log, Mary Celeste is at latitude 3656 north and longitude 2720 west, which puts Santa Maria about 110 miles east directly ahead of them. Ship speed was noted at 8 knots. We assume that the ship continued this speed till midnight, as the log at midnight reads 8 knots, course, E by S, wind west, MP rainy. It is highly likely that the ship maintained this speed from noon to midnight, which means that it traveled around 90 miles, and at midnight must be nearing the western end of Santa Maria. Weather reports from that time state that stormy conditions prevailed over the Azores on November 24th and November 25th. And it is therefore possible that now Mary Celeste was also having her fair share of bad weather. From midnight till morning, speed of the vessel continues steadily as all of the entries after midnight in the logs read the same, 8 knots. Soon, the first streaks of dawn will be visible, and Briggs finds a land ahead as the log also reads. At 5, made the island of Santa Maria bearing ESE, and a similar entry appears against the 6th hour. Considering ship speed, we can deduce that the points of land observed at that time must be Ponta Cabra Estante, which is the northwestern extremity of Santa Maria. Now, it is 8 o'clock, and considering the ship's speed, she has by this time, according to the track noted on the chart, skirted the island's north shore, and here comes the final record in the log as well, which reads, at 8 south, within the limits of the trade winds, blowing from northeast. This would put the vessel far from her route to Gibraltar. Eastern Point bore SSW, 6 miles distant. And after this, silence. The eastern point observed by the watch on the Mary Celeste was, most probably, Ponta Castella, a point on the southeastern shore of the island. This point is surmounted by a detached peak of considerable height and is higher than any other place along the island's eastern shore. Therefore, we can conclude that whatever happened after 8 a.m., and it must have been quite serious and disturbing for an experienced master mariner to order his crew to abandon ship, and that too in such a haste. We know from testimony of the crew that the men's clothing was left behind, their oilskins, boots, and even their pipes, as if they had left in a great hurry or haste. By considering these facts that there was no food on the cabin table, stove was knocked out of place, but no cooked food was found. Captain's bed was left in the same state after being slept in. Beds were not likely to go unmade until afternoon in the presence of his wife. There were no signs of an interrupted or finished meal, and no evidence of preparations for serving a meal. It is safe to assume that the abandonment took place between 8 a.m. and the noon. Now, we come to the point as to what could have happened. We know for a fact that the ship was carrying roughly 1,700 barrels of alcohol, and that the cargo was loaded in the late October and early November. De Gratia, which departed 8 days after Mary Celeste, experienced stormy weather from November 15th till November 24th. During that time, the crew never took off their fore and main hatch. Therefore, we can also assume that in all likelihood, the hatches of Mary Celeste had also remained closed during most of, if not all, the voyage up to the day of abandonment. Under such circumstances, the cargo hold had been getting little or no ventilation. As the vessel had left comparatively cooler temperatures prevailing in the New York at the time, and had passed through relatively milder Gulf Stream into the Azores, it would not be surprising if the atmospheric changes had been producing some effect. It can be stated conclusively that this abandonment took place in pleasant weather, since the cabin skylight was open. The closed cabin window showed that they had been through heavy weather, but the open skylight means only one thing: a pleasant and moderate morning. And the fact that a boat apparently was launched without bringing the vessel to a halt or slowing her gives further proof that the wind must have fallen to a light breeze. Also, if the winds were not calm, then it would mean leaving safety of the ship for a bigger danger in a smaller boat. As Briggs was an experienced mariner, he might have been mindful of the nature of the cargo and the necessity for ventilating the hold of the vessel. Due to relatively calm weather sometime before the noon, he might have ordered the removal of the bar of the forward hatch. From the records and inspection of the cargo, we know that 300 gallons of alcohol had leaked, and during this ventilation attempt, if a sailor ventured below the deck with a light or lit cigar, or due to friction between barrels a spark could have been produced, the accumulated fumes would cause an explosion violent enough to blow off the top covering on the hatch. Similar kind of incident had already happened with Captain Henry O. Appleby, who once commanded a ship named Daisy Boynton on the same route while carrying a cargo of petroleum. Gases blew the hatches off, and steam and vapor accompanied by a crackling sound began to come from the vessel's hold. Briggs may have ordered one of his men to take out a coil of rope for a tow line so that they could return to the vessel once the danger had passed. They had already removed the lazarette hatch as it was found open by the salvors. While they might have been trying to take the rope out, it might have occurred to one of the crew to use the main peak rope, which was conveniently at hand, and it would take less time to utilize it than to take out a new and perhaps stiff coil of rope from lazarette. The main rope was of about 3 inches in circumference and was approximately 300 feet long and stood ready for almost instant use. The main rope of the ship could have been connected to the rope of the smaller boat, which would at this point be loaded with the crew. To me, it seems that they want to put as much distance as possible between themselves and the threatening danger, where they could feel comparatively safe while awaiting further developments. We won't have a mystery at our hands if luck had favored them, but after analyzing the weather patterns of this region, it is clear that sudden and violent squalls occur frequently in the Azores, and according to the meteorological report in the afternoon, a wind of gale force prevailed over this area of the Azores. Under the sudden impact of a wind of such violence, the vessel may have lunged forward with such a speed that it would break their improvised tow line, leaving the occupants of the boat striving with frantic yet futile effort to get back to the ship. A heavy rain accompanying such a gale would have increased the difficulties for the people in the boat. As per the weather report from Ponta Delgada, which was only at a distance of 50 miles from the ship, On that particular day, there was rainfall of 29 millimeters on the noon of 25th of November. It is possible that the boat was swamped by the heavy seas, which resulted into the drowning of everybody on board. Mary Celeste, on the other hand, continued on her eastward course unsteadily for many days, while also threatening every other vessel which may have crossed her path until the day it was found by Di Grazia. While researching this topic, I also came across an experiment from Dr. Andrea Sella at University College London, who built a replica of the hold of Mary Celeste and simulated an explosion caused by the leaking of alcohol from the ship's cargo using butane gas. In this experiment, he used cubes of papers instead of wooden barrels and set light to the gas, which caused a huge blast while sending a ball of flame upwards. And the most remarkable thing is that none of the paper cubes were burned or blackened, or the hold was damaged. What we created was a pressure wave type of explosion, says Dr. Sella. There was a spectacular wave of flame, but behind it was relatively cool air. No soot was left behind, and there was no burning or scorching. Given all the facts we have, this replicates the conditions on board the Mary Celeste. The explosion would have been enough to blow open the hatches and would have been completely terrifying for everyone on board. Due to special nature of the highly volatile cargo, there is high probability that leaking alcohol caught light, which terrified the crew, and looking at the urgency of this danger while also being in the presence of his wife and kids, the captain decided to abandon ship. The plausible explanation has always been discounted because there were no signs of fire or explosion in the cargo hold. But as this experiment proved that such an explosion is possible without actually damaging the cargo hold or starting a fire on the ship. And we all know that when you have eliminated the impossible, whatever remains, however improbable, must be the truth. What do you guys think actually happened? Please let us know in the comment section below. Stay healthy, stay safe. John Red.